Hi people, let's try that again, shall we? We're back. I'm not sure what happened there, but we're back. Very strange. There we go. Let's try that again, shall we? Not a good start to Watercolour Wednesday. We're already running late. And here we go. So thank you so much for joining me for Watercolour Wednesday again. And this week we're doing our lovely daisy set against a stunning ultramarine backdrop. So this is one that I did previously. Bear with me 1 second, guys. There's lots of messages coming through on my phone. Let's just kill that off. Okay. So thank you again for joining. And let's see if we got any comments. Anyone saying hello? I can't see any. It's taken a while today. There seems to be some gremlins on Facebook. So anyway, I have you here. I know there's 19 watching. Make a comment, say hello so I know you're there. So this is the daisy that we're going to be doing today. And as usual, I'm using cold pressed watercolour paper, which has a lovely texture to it, a nice grain, and it's a good thick paper. Hi there, Janice. Yeah, it's a nice thick paper, so it's going to resist warping. And I've got the edges taped. Now today I'm using a watercolour block, so I don't need to tape it to the board. And the reason I chose a watercolour block is that I'm going to want to be moving it around a bit from time to time. There we go, now it's working. Hey Joe, afternoon. Good afternoon to you. So that's the paper that I'm using, cold pressed, and I'm using the two usual brushes. So my large number 12 and my small number 6. Hi Sarah, good to have you along. So those are the brushes. Colours are very simple, ultramarine blue, some yellow, cadmium yellow, a little bit of burnt sienna, and I'm going to be mixing some grey. Hi Anne. It seems fine now, Anne. I had to come out again and back in because it said it had trouble playing the video for some bizarre reason. Who knows? You love daisies, Audrey. Excellent. And hopefully you'll either paint along with me or you'll paint afterwards. Remember guys, this video stays live on here, so if you want to come back later, another day, maybe at the weekend when you've got more time, you can replay all my previous videos. They all stay under that video tab at the top of my page, just under the profile picture. So let's get started, and we're going to create the background wet in wet. We want to paint around the outside of our daisy. Yeah, everybody loves my water pot, so I've got my I've got my fish and my flower, and I've ordered 20 of these jars. I made them myself, and I will be selling them, so watch this space. It's not a real fish. Okay, so I'm just going to take clean water to start. I'm going to pop my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to bring the water around the petals of the daisy. Okay, just clean water coming around the edge. Just wetting the paper so that I don't end up with any harsh lines later when I put the wash in for the background. So it's a bit tedious watching me paint water, but it's absolutely necessary. So take your water around your petals if you're painting along with me. Hiya Nick. Yeah, very odd. Got strange gremlins going on with Facebook today. So coming around the edge of the petals. Now I'm using my watercolour paints today. just to showcase them again. And then these are high pigment, handmade watercolours, which I launched at the weekend and sold out the same day. I will be adding more at the end of this week. So if you're looking for some artist quality, high pigment watercolours, give them a try. They're not cheap because they're high pigment and they're all pure. There's no fillers, no additives. So you get real strong colours from your pans, and they will last you so much longer than cheaper dry watercolour. So that you can see the shine to the surface of them. Hopefully the camera's picking that up. They stay, what can we call it? They stay tacky, kind of stickiness to them, because I use honey as well. I'm just going to turn that around. Here we go. So I think I've lost some people today because of the video not starting on time. And maybe 1 o'clock, my usual time, suits people's lunchtime breaks. But I had to take my other half to drop his car off for servicing this morning, and I didn't want to be late, so therefore the 1:30 start today. We'll be back to normal next week. Okay, so I've wet all around the petals, and now I'm just going to wet the rest of my page very quickly. Let me get a big brush. There we go, get the big boys out. Just wetting. Now I don't want any puddles. Now this is going to give the paint somewhere to run off to seep into. I'm just checking over the paper now and looking for any big puddles and using my brush to soak those up. Okay, making sure I've got everything. There's a puddle here, so I'm just going to soak that up. You want to try and keep your flour dry. That's the trick. And we need to work fairly quick before the paper dries on us. I'm doing a really big daisy here, so it's going to take me a while. Okay, everything's nice and wet. So I'm going to take some water, pop it into my mixing well. Only 68 of you today. What's going on? Where are my people? And look at this colour. Look at ultra. Who can't love ultramarine blue? Hello, Wendy. So I'm going to mix a lot of this up because I've got a lot of paper to cover. So dropping some more water in there. I don't want to run out. And I want it strong. Real strong, beautiful. Look at that. Oh, it's heavenly, isn't it? Okay, I'm going to come around the edge first. I'm just going to let this bleed out at the edge. I'm not taking it right up to the tape. Nice wet brush, a nice good strong puddle of colour. Dropping some of that wonderful, wonderful colour onto the surface. Getting the edge done, and then I'm going to work from the flower out. Be careful when you come up beside your flower. That's when you need to take care. I should have put it more in the centre. I've come over to one side, haven't I? There we go. I'm just going to encourage that paint around the edge to bleed out. So I'm just adding a bit more water around the edge. So we'll get a nice soft bleed out from the paint. Okay. Now for the tricky bit. To pick up some colour, use the point of your brush when we come in between the flowers, the flower petals. And we're painting everything but the flower at this stage. Negative painting around the outside. Who's that? Sarah Jane. Not painting till later. Excellent. I was just saying exactly that. You don't have to paint along. You can just sit back with your cup of tea, relax and watch later. There we go. Coming up onto the point of the brush, coming between those petals. When I come to the end of the daisy petals, I'm just going to put a little indentation in the end. Try and keep an eye on your lines, your pencil lines. And use that point again to get into the tricky bits. I'm using my size 12. It comes to a lovely point, so I'm not worried too much about making a mess. There we go, painting in and around our daisy. Just coming into the end of the petal to give it a shape, a little bit of a divot in the end. There we go. So yeah, for those of you that were wondering why I started later today, it wasn't because it was my birthday yesterday and I got drunk. I don't drink. I'm boring. No, I had to go to Peterborough to drop my other half's car off. So just be careful when you're coming between your flower. Hi Shirley, good to have you along. Turn your page round so you've got a good angle to work with. And just giving that petal a little shape at the end. So we started, for those of you that have just joined, we started by wetting the paper around the daisy and then started with our colour on the outside, and now we're coming close to the petals. Just bleeding that out to the edge. Touch more water, and no, I haven't got a fish in my jar. Up onto the point, come between your petals, give it that little shape at the end. The other good thing about doing the background first, hi Chris, is that when you're painting around the edge of the petals, you're not battling against that colour drying on you. It's got somewhere to bleed into, so it's giving you a nice smooth transition in your background colour rather than it being blotchy. So that's why I do it this way round. Just going to bleed that off into the corner there, and around we go. Take your time with this bit, don't rush, relax. Have a cup of tea. And coming in again, I'm nearly all the way round. Stroking that brush nice and slow, dragging it along, around the edges. And we're nearly back to the beginning. Oh, I missed a bit. I'm going to have some of these petals sitting behind each other. There we go. Come right in. Just going to tidy up now. The danger is, because you've got a whole wet page, you can't balance your hand, so you need to be steady. There we go. You can always come back in and put some more colour on afterwards. So there we are. I'm just going to grab a piece of tissue. Now you don't have to do this in blue. I'd love to see some of you do it with greens and yellows in the background to give it a more, you know, like the flower is amongst its friends. Just working that now, walking that off to the edge of the page. There we go. And look how lovely and soft the outer edge is. No hard lines. Okay, now we've done that, we have to wait. We have to wait for the background to dry. You can always hit it with your hairdryer. I'm just going to tidy up. There's a couple of bits that I'm not happy with. Just tidy up. Touch more paint. And here. Tidy up some of those edges. There we go. Pulling that paint out where it's a bit stronger. If you wanted it to look cloudy, you could just take a bit of tissue and dab in and lift some colour out to create a bit of cloud in your background sky. Just a bit of damp tissue, just touch in, and it'll soak up some of that paint and give you that cloudy effect. I didn't do that yesterday, but I fancy some clouds today. Just pop a few in that background. Excellent. 64 of you. I'm just going to have a bit of tea. Is everyone well? Are you all good? Are you all enjoying my Watercolour Wednesdays? Please tell your friends about this. Pass on the message. Let's see if we can. I've had over 100 people on a Watercolour Wednesday before. So let's see if we can get that number back up. I've just seen another bit I want to tidy up, and then we'll carry on. There we go. That's a bit neater. Fabulous. Okay. I'm just going to quickly change this pot of water. So you can see my fish. So you enjoy Wednesdays the most? Fabulous. Oh, that's great. Your first time watching, Jenny. Oh, my word. You have got a lot of recordings to look back over. So have fun. Fill your boots. So if anyone is wondering what this is epoxy resin. I'm an epoxy resin artist as well. And I created layers of resin and painted the fish on all the layers. So he's 3D. I can't show you him from the side, but he's 3-dimensional. And last week I used them for the first time. So I have been asked by a number of people if they can buy them. So I've ordered 20 jars and I will be doing a production run of the fish. I'm not sure whether to do flowers as well. So poppies. I've also got one here with a daisy in the water. So yeah, I might take pre-orders and see what people want. Okay, now we can get on. The background's still got some drying to do, but we can paint the middle of our daisy. What you must never do is start painting the petals whilst the background's wet. Otherwise you're just going to, as soon as you put water next to the damp paint, it's going to follow that water and it's going to ruin your work. So be patient and let that background dry, and we can focus on the middle. So I'm going to take some of my gorgeous cadmium yellow and come into the middle of my daisy. Oh, look at that. Look at the power of that colour. I just touched into my paints and immediately they dance to life. There's no pre-wetting required. I'm also going to take some lemon yellow because I'm seeing the sunlight is coming from the top right hand side. It's hitting the centre of the flower and highlighting the petals at the bottom, and the petals at the top, like I did on this one, are going to be in shadow. So I'm taking some lemon yellow. Look at these. Oh, you know, guys, I'm sad. I know I'm sad, but I love yellow. It's one of the happiest colours, I think. It reminds me of warm days, of sunshine, of happier times to come for us all. So I've took that lemon yellow and I'm working it towards the cadmium yellow mid, which is a really strong, deep yellow, egg yolk yellow, like a Cadbury's cream egg. And then just using the tip of my brush, I'm very squeaky today. You'd love a class to know how to make the goldfish. Oh, Louise. I could talk to you for hours about resin. There's so much you need to know. I've been using resin for over 10 years and I see so many crafts people using it, and they use UV resin and they use really dodgy resin. It's a minefield. So if you want, Louise, message me afterwards. I do some kits. I do some resin kits. Have a look on my website to do coasters. I'll show you. The kits on my website, you can do the glass coasters with the sea scene, and you get everything you need, the glass coaster and the resin. And I also do a kit for the wooden cheese boards, okay, with the resin on the top. So you get 2 of these wonderful bamboo cheese boards, and you get the video tutorial to go with it. So you get the kit and you get the tutorial. So maybe consider that. Just be careful, you can waste. When I first started with resin, I wasted a fortune. So just a word of caution, my lovely. Okay, I also teach resin in the real world. You can come along to my studio and make a big piece, 60 by 40 artwork. Okay, so I've got my lovely sunshine yellow, and now I'm just going to tap into it with some more of my sunshine in a pot. The background's still drying, and I want to bring some other colours in, so I'm going to bring just a tiny bit, because this colour's very strong, of my red. This is vermilion. I'm coming in with some red, just tapping down over the bottom left hand side of the middle of my daisy. A little bit more red. Look how quick these paints react. I've not pre-wet them. As I say, they will be coming back for sale. If you want to invest in some quality watercolour paints, check them out. The listing is live on my website, but I have no stock showing at the moment. As I say, at the weekend there will be more. And now I'm going to take some of my burnt sienna, again just a little bit, and drop some burnt sienna in the bottom, starting to dark. I'm doing a very little bit at a time. I don't want to kill it, overpower it. With my sienna, giving it some shadow down that, giving it that 3D look. Okay, I'm going to leave that a little while because it's very wet, and I'm going to put some stronger colour over the top in a moment. So back to my cadmium yellow, add in some more detail, creamy paint now, straight from the pan, and just tapping in. My paper's still damp, but I can get some texture in the middle of my daisy flower. That lovely big centre over the top of the lemon yellow. It will bleed in ever so slightly and give you a nice look to the centre part of your flower. My background is still slightly wet, so I'll carry on. Let's drop a little bit of carmine in as well. Carmine is a super strong red, really dark blood red. There we go, just dropping that around the dark side, the underneath of the middle of my daisy, and bring it forward a little way. Really starting to take shape now. Your favourite colour, yellow, Ruth? My favourite colour too. I'm just going to have a sip of my tea, guys, bear with me. You see my little clouds in the background? Looks sweet, doesn't it? Okay, come on flower, dry. I think I'm going to take my hairdryer to this. So block your ears if you don't like the sound of the hairdryer. I'm just going to give it a gentle dry. Be careful of the middle because it's very wet still. Okay, well the outside is dry and the middle nearly is, so we're going to take a risk. I'm going to take a risk. And we're going to come to the petals. Now for the petals I want to add some soft grey shadows. Lovely soft greys. Now I do have Payne's Grey in this set. It's actually not called Payne's Grey, it's called Friend's Grey because my surname is Friend. Beautiful grey. Lots of people don't have Payne's Grey. One of the reasons I put it in my set is because of that fact. But if you haven't, just take your ultramarine blue and your brown. You can use either burnt umber or in my case I'm using, what am I using? I just used it. My brain really has frozen. So you can see the colour that I've mixed. A nice light grey. I'm going to come in with this grey. Very watered down. Decide where I want some shadows in my petals. I'm going to have some over here. Come along my petal, wet onto dry. Place that on, it's very light, and then I'm just going to use the tip of my brush to spread it out where I want it. Add in a little bit of interest. You could also use some purples in your shadows, that would look pretty. Coming into another petal, this one I'm just going to bring a line down the middle up on the tip of my brush, and then soften that line by bringing water underneath. And watch the paint, it'll just bleed into the water and give you a nice soft line. Into my grey again. Down the bottom now. Coming into that petal, the background's dry, so I'm safe. Adding a hint of colour to the petals, a hint of shadow. And some of these petals I want to leave a nice banded line in the middle, and others I'm going to wash out. I'm just going to soften them. It's a tiny bit of paint, guys, don't overdo it. I'm going to come into this background petal, which is going to be in shadow. This one's sticking out the bottom. Bring my grey along, and then take some water along the rest of the petal. So it will bleed into it and it'll give you a nice graduated petal. Carrying on, let's have another shadow one at the back here. Bringing the grey this time all the way over the petal. There we go. Now if I want a stronger pop of colour, I'll just pick up some more pigment and drop it in to the wet paint and just leave it alone. Let it do its thing. Coming round. So as I said, my sunlight's coming from here. So these petals are going to be light and these ones are going to have some shadow. I'm going to bring some grey all over this petal. Keep it nice and light. Just tap in around the centre of your flower. Beautiful. You notice I'm leaving gaps between my petals. I'm going from one to another and leaving a gap in between. Let's turn this around. That's so that they don't bleed together. So come in with my paints, my Friends Grey. It's the first time I've showcased Friends Grey. It's beautiful. It took me quite a while to get it just right. And it's the only one of my colours that isn't single pigments. I've mixed 4 pigments to get my grey. How I want it. There we are. Nice and soft. Skip another petal and then come round the side. Let's have one at the back here in strong shadow. So I'm going to take my grey a bit stronger, a little bit more paint, bring some shadow between the petals. Right on the tip of the brush as you come between the lines. You're all very quiet today. Are you all just listening? I keep looking up to see if there's any comments. No comments. Nothing to say. Just listening. There we go. Adding a nice dark shadow there between the petals. Now I also want some reflected light, okay, from that beautiful centre of the flower. So I'm going to bring a little bit of my lemon yellow into some of these petals. Just taking a very tiny bit of paint and spreading it over these petals here. Little bit of refracted light. That's a good word, isn't it? Refracted light. I'm getting ever so posh. Okay, carrying on with my grey. Now I don't mind the grey mixing with this light yellow. The grey has blue in it, so it might go a little bit green, but that's fine. It's nature. Be loose, be free, have fun. Another petal here. I'm going to stay away from the wet petal. I'm leaving a gap. There we go. I don't want to make it too grey. Okay, this one, they're still wet. This one's still wet, so I'm going to carry on round. Now, I'm going to add a bit more water. And maybe a little bit. I'm playing now, guys. I'm having fun. I'm always having fun. I've added a little bit of ultramarine to my grey. I want a bit more bluey tinge to these petals. Coming into the tip. Skipping between the petals. Really washed out colours. Nothing too strong. Nice, I like that. Coming back to the top. Some nice bluey grey colours coming into the petals behind. They're not all the same. Some I'm doing lighter than others. A bit more grey. Just wet it and pour that colour down. Lovely. I'm going to darken this one here, the one right at the back. I want the petal in front of it to really stand out. So by darkening the one at the back, it brings that one forward. Just wash that out with a bit of water. You get a nice muted look. And around we go. Lots of lovely petals. Wet on to dry, and then using my brush to spread the colours out. Remembering this side is the lighter side, so I mustn't get carried away over this side. Just add in a hint of colour. And maybe I'll add a bit more refracted colour. Let's add another little bit of lemon on this side. Just a tiny dot. Spread it round. Now I'm going to touch my brush into the centre of the flower and release some of the orange. Just touch it in and let it bleed out. Let it bleed along the petals. It's nearly dry, just a little bit. So it will move and you'll get that soft bleed. Teresa, what was that? Hi Sandra, late starting. Jacqueline, you're late too. Yes, it will, Jacqueline. All my videos are on here for you to watch again and again and again. There's loads. Fill your boots. Okay, coming in again. Yes, sorry, Teresa. To answer your question, what I did was wet the whole area, all but the flower, and then I put the blue from the outside first and worked into the flower. Bring in that blue. It just gives somewhere for the blue that you're doing the detailed work with to bleed into. And then today, for a bit of fun, I dabbed and lifted out a few clouds. Okay? So that's you all caught up. What was I doing? Where was I? I'm going to add another shadow petal at the back with my friend's grey. I love saying that. This one's just tucked in behind the others, so it's not catching the sunlight. Just dropping that in. And there's another one round the back here. Actually, I'm going to let that one catch the light. I'm going to take this one darker. There we go. Beautiful, soft, gentle colour palette. Okay, one more little area of refracted light in the petal up here. Now if you put your colour on and it looks too strong, just run your brush across it and pick up some of that colour. I'm just seeing if there are any petals I've missed out. Yes, Teresa, you draw it first. Definitely draw it first. You can, you could do it blind. Why not? You could. Okay. Now I'm just going to take some clean water and just go over some of the areas of the white page, wetting it so just a little bit of the colour around it will bleed, just so everything's got a hint of colour. There we go. And tweaking now, I'm going to darken the outer edge of some of the petals. Just darken, clean your brush, and to add a bit of water to give it somewhere to spread out into. Just soften that edge line. There we go. Sit back and have a look. Decide if there's anything else you want to do. I've missed one. I've missed a little petal just down here. This one that's sort of split in two. Fabulous. I'm just going to go back to the centre of my flower again and just darken the shadow in this corner. I'm going to take my burnt sienna and pop that just with the very tip of the brush, creating texture and shadow at the same time. On the left hand side, just dot it around. And a bit more of my carmine red. You can use crimson red, is a good substitute for carmine. Bit of carmine. Just darkening that side down and bringing a few flecks of that darker colour over, creeping up towards the lighter areas of the centre. Finally, to finish that shadow, I'm going to take my ultramarine blue and pop that in the shadow too. Shadows tend to be nice and cool colours, so just add in a bit of blue right along that edge, the left hand side, really darkening that down. You don't want to do that step too early, otherwise it will bleed too far and you don't want that. Okay, I'm just having a look. I'm not sure I like that yellow, so I'm just softening that yellow. I'm going to take a bit of tissue and tap down and lift some of the colour out. Tap down. Too much yellow. it's nice to see how to fix things too, I find. There we go. Now for the stem. Let's give him a stem and a leaf. I'm going to use my ultramarine blue. I've got greens, but I do like mixing a green. So ultramarine blue and some lemon yellow. Taking it quite creamy. Oops, I didn't wash my brush. I've messed up my yellow. If you want a slightly more natural green, you could add some you could add some golden ochre or yellow ochre into your green to give it more of a natural colour. Or the other thing you do is take a tiny dab of red and plonk that in, and you'll see the green goes from bright to more of a sagey colour. So mixing it up quite weak to begin with, 50-50 mix of water and paint. Coming behind that petal, down the stem to the bottom of my page, and along the little bud, the little leaf coming out to the side here. Leaving a sliver of white at the top. Can you see that? Just a sliver of white. So that's my lighter colour. Now I'm going to do the same mixture but creamy, so it's dark. Blue again, not much water, yellow, bit more blue, keep it creamy, don't add too much water. And then I'm going to come down, remember our light source is coming from the top right, so I'm going to come down the edge, just down the edge of my stem and the bud, along the bottom, right on the tip of my brush. And that will spread out in the water of the paint that's below it. You can encourage it with your brush. And there we go. One daisy. I like leaving the highlight at the top, like the light is just hitting the edge of that stalk there. I'm just going to give it a quick dry and then we'll finish up. I'm just going to take that one stage darker, bit more blue, coming into that little crook there and then down the stem. And there we go. Our daisy. Now, you could leave the outside really loose. There's the one I did yesterday. So that one's got a bit more grey in it. I've kept this one a bit lighter. I feel that spring is in the air. Yours looks like a fried egg. These Watercolour Wednesdays, guys, are a bit of fun for you. It's free of charge, obviously, unlike my full tutorials. So yeah, usually anything I put up for Watercolour Wednesday, you should draw first before 1 o'clock comes, okay? Otherwise you'll be a bit behind. I'm just removing my tape there. I've had a little bit of a bleed around the edge, but I'm not too worried. Just a bit of fun. Wouldn't that look lovely on a greetings card to send to somebody during lockdown? Your daisy, painted by you. Now, you could also, instead of letting you go, guys, I've just, if you want to, just take that blue a bit darker. Give it another layer. But remember, if you want to do that, give it that little notch at the end of the leaves. If you're going to give it another layer, stronger ultramarine or whatever colour background you're doing, because this is all dry now, I need to give somewhere for the paint to bleed into, otherwise I'll end up with hard edges around the flower. So just take some water and just gently give that extra layer of blue somewhere to go. Okay, so it will soften the edge. Because if you leave watercolour to dry on its own, you'll get a really hard edge. So you could go darker still around the edge. I quite like that. I'm just going to do it a bit more around here. I don't want to let you all go. I love having you all here. So I'm going to come behind that petal into the end. Give that little indentation in the end. Bring a darker layer of blue close to the flower so it really pops out. And then some water around the edge. Please, please, if you can, check out my pay to watch classes to join in. And you get to join me on Zoom in my Zoom virtual classroom. They're generally around a 2-hour lesson and I teach all sorts. So there's pastels, there's colour pencils, watercolours, ink. What else do I do? I think that's about it. So check out my upcoming, it's called live classes on my website, okay? The website's there on the screen, eunice-j-friend.com. They're £10 or £12. The pastel ones and acrylic painting tend to be £12. The watercolours are £10. And you also get the recording of the lesson, okay? So you get to join live if you can. If you can't, don't worry, because you will get the recorded lesson as well. And there's no time limit. You can watch it over and over again. So for £10, it's a bargain. I also have on my website my on-demand classes, which is a library of previous pay-to-watch classes. So with a click of a button, you can find a class you want to do, try it out, try one of the longer ones on the on-demand, and then you get sent a PDF of the reference picture and a link for you to watch the video, again, as many times as you want. So that's it. Remember, I sell the products too, and if you want a set of my high pigment handmade watercolours made with love and honey, watch out this weekend when I will be reopening up for sales again. There'll be another 10 sets coming up. They take time to make, an hour per pigment, and I make them in the traditional way with glass and a glass muller, grinding the pigments by hand. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'll come up with another class for next Wednesday, and it will be back at our usual time of 1 o'clock. Thank you guys. Send me pictures of your daisies. I'd love to see them. Even the fried eggs. Thank you. And I say goodbye. See you all again next week. Bye now.